Hi everyone! Welcome back to Oh My Run's YouTube channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the top 5 things that beginner crocheters and knitters should avoid. So if you're interested to find out these top 5 things, please keep watching. Okay, so it's been about 3 months since our last video, and I was thinking about what type of video to film for you guys next. And then I got that idea because I've been seeing a lot of posts in Facebook groups. Yeah, mostly Facebook groups. There are lots of questions that are kind of repeating themselves, and I've seen a lot of things that um, I think can be addressed by this video. So over the quarantine periods, how many quarantine months here in the Philippines, I have gotten a lot of customers who are newbies who want to get into the crochet or knit for the first time, and they don't know what to buy, of course. But I've also seen in the groups that there are lots of people who are interested in the craft and they want to find materials and they have a lot of questions. And yeah, most of the time I feel like there's so much going on with beginners, and obviously when you jump into the world of supplies and online stores, then you find so many things that you just want to buy all of it just to know that you have everything complete with you. But most of the time that's not necessary, and I'm making this video to help every newbie out there, or even if you're not a newbie, even if you're just new to online shopping and buying supplies online, this video is for you guys. So how I got the top 5, actually went on Instagram stories. I already thought of a couple of things that I wanted to include, but I also went into Instagram stories just to ask everyone who's following me. So if you're following us on Instagram, you might have seen that a few weeks ago, and I asked what they thought were the things that beginner knitters or crocheters should be avoiding, and I've narrowed it down to 5 categories, and we're going to be talking about those categories from the least or most trivial ones up to the most important one that really beginners should avoid at all costs. So without further ado, let's get started. So number 5, we're gonna go from 5 to 1. So the 5th one, kind of basic, but it is to avoid black yarns. Okay, I agree with this very much, because if you're a beginner and you want to start learning something, I think it's important for you to be able to see what you're doing. And most of the time, if you're not that experienced yet, you won't be able to see the stitches made by black yarns, because since it's a darker color, it's harder to see your rows, it's harder to see your stitches. And most of the time, even those who are used to working with darker colored yarns, they skip stitches or they miss the row counts because it's very hard to see. So as if you're a beginner, just kind of avoid it for a while if you can. Try to go for lighter colored yarns or yarns that you can see your stitches on, especially if you are using smaller, thinner yarns. Those are going to be harder to see. So first thing to avoid is black or dark colored yarns. Number 4. Okay, so this is something that I've also noticed, and it's not crediting designers. Here in the Philippines, we don't really have a lot of people who are buying patterns. It's kind of a new thing. We don't have that much pattern designers who are selling their work, or have a lot of people who are willing to buy paid patterns. So a lot of people, what they do is they look for free patterns on Google, Pinterest, sometimes on Facebook. But most of the time, they forget to credit the designer. So in most free patterns, you can see notes at the top. Usually, at the start of the pattern, usually they put what stitches are being used in the pattern, and also what they have notes written on there. And most of the time, they will tell you that you're allowed to sell it or you're not allowed to sell it. It depends on the designer. You're allowed to sell it but you have to credit who the pattern designer is. And most of the time, I don't see that in posts. Or what I notice also is that there's a lot of people who they grab photos from Pinterest and they use it as their catalog for people who want to order made to order products from them. And that's something that you guys should avoid, because those pictures, even though they're the inspiration of the design that you want to do, it's not yours. And taking pictures from a source like the designer themselves or from crocheters who are more experienced than you, obviously it's going to be different from what you're making. It's going to be different from what you make on your own. And it sets a really bad expectation on your customer, because they expect that you are able to produce the exact same design. And while you can copy it, copy, I say that word loosely, while you can replicate that design, you won't exactly get it perfectly the same. So to avoid copyright issues, because pictures are under copyright, especially if there's a watermark on it, pictures, and in order for you to set a good expectation, especially for your made to order clients, please don't just grab pictures from other people and use them as your catalog. And please credit always the designer or your inspiration for the pattern, just as respect, because obviously designers, they put so much work into it. They, especially pictures and just writing the pattern, it takes a lot of trial and error for them, and it's really hard if you put out a free pattern and a lot of people are just taking advantage of it and not crediting you. It's just please don't do it. Always credit designers, always credit where you get the picture from, always just give credit where credit is due. Everything's good. All right, moving on to number 3, and that is needlessly expensive supplies. Okay, me as a store, I would admit that most of my items are kind of pricier than most, but as a beginner, all you really need are a few simple things. And most of the time, you can find something that is really below budget. No, within budget, not below budget. It's always within your budget, and you don't really have to go ahead and purchase the expensive supplies outright just because everyone's posting. I also noticed that because recently the tulip red, where is it? Here. This little set has become really popular, and I've seen a lot of people posting this on the Facebook groups. So it's just like this. It's a red crochet hook. It's a red hook. And yeah, a lot of people are posting their tulip hooks, and a lot of people in the comments are like, sana all. And I feel like the more you see people posting expensive things, as a beginner, of course, you're gonna get very curious. So, oh, what's this? Why is everyone posting this? Is this something that I actually have? Is this something that I need? Most of the time, the answer is no, especially if you're still a beginner and you're still learning and you really don't know what you're doing yet. You don't have to buy expensive supplies to learn on. What you just need is a good quality, reliable hook to start with. And once you get the hang of things, you can start investing, because when you're starting out, you're not really sure what kind of materials you need yet and what kind of hook size you're more comfortable with. So I talk more about hook size and yarn size. I'll link it here. The card. Oh, this side. I think it's this side. I'm gonna link that video up. We talk about hook sizes and yarn weights there. But of course, if you're a beginner, you really haven't explored so much yet that you know your preference, what kind of hook you're comfortable with, what kind of yarn you prefer, what kind of category thickness you need. So it's very important for you to be able to know that before you go and buy expensive things, because sayang naman if you buy expensive and then you don't get to use it because you don't like it, or you find that it's not for you. So yeah, to avoid the unnecessary expense, just start off with the affordable ones first. I mean, there's nothing wrong if you're a beginner and you want to go buy the expensive ones, but I just feel like if you're not sure yet, don't do it yet. Because eventually it might be wasteful if you buy expensive supplies outright and you don't know what you're doing yet. Parang it's a waste of the yarn that's expensive if you're going to practice on it, and I don't think you can get to appreciate the expensive supplies yet. So yeah. Number 2, similar also to the first one, but this one is buying too much supplies. Okay, so also in crochet groups, what I notice is a lot of people, they post a lot of their hauls. They post now, oh, this is my 11/11 shopping, or this is my collection. And of course, we all love yarn. We love hoarding yarn. I hoard yarn. I've been there too. I've gone through my phase of hoarding lots of yarn that I didn't know what to do with. I buy it because the colors are nice, of course, or it's inexpensive. Yeah, I've done that before. But honestly, if you are just starting out, all you need is yarn, your tool, and maybe some little accessories out there. So if you're gonna start crocheting, all you need actually is a ball of yarn, of course. Here is our cotton latte. This is one of our best sellers. Yes, bestseller. And a crochet hook. So all you need is this and this. Together, this is less than 200 pesos. You can get something more inexpensive. Well, I don't have it here. You can just get the Monaco acrylic. That's 15 pesos per skein of 18 grams. It's smaller than this, but you know, if you're gonna practice on it, that's fine. And this one is just 50 pesos. So, you know, very inexpensive. You don't really have to go and buy super dami firsthand, especially if you're gonna practice pa lang, or if you're still learning, because obviously if you're starting out, like I said, if you're gonna go to the crochet groups, there's a lot of people selling super bulk, super cheap for a lot of pieces. But sometimes if you don't know what you're doing yet, you end up buying a lot of these things and you don't really know how to use it yet, and you don't know if you're gonna like it. So yeah, just avoid buying too much at one time. I know it's very tempting to hoard, but me personally, some of the yarns that I haven't used, or like some of the yarns I've hoarded from when I was a beginner very many years ago, they're all just kind of piled up there and I don't know what to do with them because I don't really like them. I've sold some stuff, but sometimes it's hard to sell it also because it's something that's super novelty, you know. Oh yeah, and that's another thing that I have to mention from your supplies. Avoid also the buying those fancy yarns, so velvet. There's the other fuzzy one, I forgot what it's called, but avoid those also because they're kind of hard to see your stitches on and they're kind of expensive. So you don't need to buy those yet as a beginner. Just start off with your super basic inexpensive yarns. There's a lot out there. Like I said, you can, for 100 pesos, you're good to go. You can buy your own kit already. And really that's just about it. So yeah, just buy in moderation. So for a crocheter, all you need is your yarn and a hook, maybe some needles. These are blunt tip, these are needles. This is a big one. This is a bent tip needle, so you can get one of these to weave in your yarn ends. And if you're a knitter, you're interested in knitting, all you need are the same things. Of course, you use knitting needles, so you just need your yarn, you need your needles, and probably you also get these point protectors. These are called point protectors, and they come with your they come in pairs also. What they do is they act as stoppers for your needles. So if you're working on circular If you're working on circular needles like me, if you're finished with your project for the meantime, you can put the point protectors on, and it acts like a stopper so your project doesn't slip off. Because with knitting, as I mentioned in one of my Instagram, Facebook posts, with knitting, all your stitches are in the needle only. So the point protector acts as something that prevents it from falling out. And of course, you also need a yarn needle. That's it. 3 to 4 things and you're ready. So you don't have to buy too much. I feel like a lot of those people, they want to buy a lot because they want to make tops again. But we're going to address that because number one, the thing that a lot of people voted so much on, I got around 10 to 12 people who answered this out of the 20 responses I got. 10 to 12 were on this topic. So the first thing, the top one thing that beginners should avoid is skipping on your basic stitch education and going straight into a complicated pattern. Okay, so as a beginner, obviously, if you got interested in crocheting or knitting, you probably saw something on Pinterest or Instagram that you wanted to copy. And well, that's not exactly a bad thing, of course. We all have to start somewhere. A lot of people, what they do is, I'm a beginner, I want to make this that. And it's like, oh, me as a yarn seller, I usually get DMs about this. Like, I want to make the big, giant, fluffy blankets that you see on Instagram, the very aesthetic, chunky ones. And they're like, I'm a beginner, I'm just starting out, I don't have materials yet, but I want to make this. And I get taken aback, of course, because one, the material for this blanket, the chunky blanket, very expensive. You would spend at least 2,000 pesos to get that exact look. And of course, for something, for a big project like that, you would need a lot of yarn. So if you don't have the big cakes of yarn, you would need a lot of pieces of yarn. And of course, the cost adds up. And most of the time, they don't want to believe me. But I feel like they think I'm discouraging them from doing it, or I don't want to sell to them. But the reality is, if you're a beginner, you really just want to start out, please start from the basics. Because if you want to make something big again, it's like saying that, oh, I don't need the basics, I just have to jump right into it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna prove all of you wrong. But honestly, if you don't start out with the basics, you won't be able to meet your expectation because you don't know what you're doing per se. While it may seem easy, it's a very costly investment, and you really have to put much thought into going into the complicated patterns. Because if you're going to follow something like a shirt or a blanket, it's gonna take up more yarn than a small coaster. And of course, if it's gonna take up more yarn, it means it's gonna be more expensive to make. And while there are beginners who are more advanced than others, like they just started out but they're already making clothes, they're already making bikini tops and whatnot, that's not everyone. Everyone learns at their own pace. And I feel like there's a lot of unrealistic expectations that beginners have, that it's easy. Some people they find it easy, they learn really fast. But there are some people that, of course, it has to take time because we all have different learning styles. We all have different approaches of learning. Like how I explain it, sometimes my sister doesn't get it if I try to teach her, and sometimes if she explains it to me, I don't get it also. So, a lot of people have different ways of learning, and yeah, just always go at your own pace. Don't be afraid to explore and learn slowly, because what's important is you learn all the things that you have to learn before you go into the complicated patterns. Because if you learn those stitches, most of the time you can see a picture and you can be like, hey, this is like single crochets or double crochets. And it's easier for you to be able to make what you want to make because you know your stitches, you know your basics, and you can just make your own designs. And it's gonna be so much easier for you if you learn your basics. Because obviously everyone has to start somewhere. But it's really advisable that you do start with your basics. And a lot of beginners tend to forget that because they really want to go ahead and do the big stuff agad para wala nang sayang. But always, it's not a loss for you if you do start off with your basics. You might go slower than most people, but I feel like in the end, it's worth it because if you start off with your basics, you practice it and you hone your skills. If you decide to do and make it a business, you'll be able to produce cleaner stitches, you'll be able to make more quality work because you know what you're doing on it. So yeah, that's the top 5 things that beginners should be avoiding. And if you have any more comments, suggestions, violent reactions, if something in this video stuck with you, feel free to leave a comment down below or send us a message in any of our social media. If you have other video suggestions, if you have short tutorials that you want us to film, you can also leave suggestions below in our social media. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. You can also turn on post notifications so you get notified whenever we do decide to post a video or whenever we do come out with a new video. You can also follow us on our Facebook and Instagram if you're interested. That's the end of our video. We'll see you guys next time. Bye!